Luffy, Law, and Kid each left the land of Wano at the same time, but they each went in different directions shortly after. Whilst one path took the Strawhats to the futuristic island of Egghead, another path led the Kid Pirates to the land of Elbaf, and the final path led the Heart Pirates to the turbulent waters within Blackbeard's territory. Now we all know the story so far, from the Strawhats' adventure on Egghead, the decimation of the Kid Pirates near Elbaf, and the defeat of the Heart Pirates by the Blackbeard Pirates. But what if we swapped characters? What if Kid went to Egghead or fought Blackbeard? Or what if Law went to Egghead or fought Shanks? And whilst I will address these different what ifs in future videos, what I wanted to focus on in this video is what if Luffy fought Blackbeard directly after leaving Wano? More specifically, if Luffy and his crew were placed into the same situation as Law and his crew. How would that fight look, and who would win? And as for Luffy going to Elbaf, my next video will be on that topic. For right now, let's get into it. Now I'm not going to beat around the bush here. If the Straw Hats fought the Blackbeard Pirates after Wano, this fight would not be close. But I bring this up because Blackbeard stated that he knew that Luffy, Law, or Kid would wander into his territory, and he was prepared to ambush one of them. Sure, this worked out when he fought Law, and probably would have worked out against Kid as well, but there was a very real chance that Blackbeard would have been face to face with Luffy. Blackbeard knew that he might run into Luffy, and his plan was to fight the entire Straw Hat crew with just Doc Q, Van Augur, and Burgess. Not even his entire crew. I know people love to praise Blackbeard as this master tactician who methodically plans out all of his moves, but for such a smart man, this was a very stupid idea. Luffy, Law, and Kid defeated Kaido and Big Mom, as well as the Beast Pirates, and knowing this, Blackbeard was ready to challenge one of them with less than half of his crew. Again, this worked out against Law, and might have worked against Kid, but only bringing half of your crew to fight the entire Straw Hat crew is a stupid plan. Or is it? There is one hypothetical way that the Blackbeard Pirates could salvage this fight and come out with the win, but I will save that for later in the video. For right now, let's look at this mismatch. Blackbeard in this scenario only has with him Burgess, Doc Q with Stronger, and Van Augur, and Luffy has his entire crew post Wano. Now there are not enough Blackbeard Pirates for 1 vs 1 matchups, so I will go over some hypothetical matchups and how I see the Straw Hats handling this fight. The Blackbeard Pirates each have new abilities, but nothing too crazy. Burgess has the very underwhelming buff fruit, and with that ability, he was able to throw large objects such as mountains at people. The problem is that we have already seen several ways the Straw Hats could counter this fruit. Imagine Burgess throws a boulder, but Jinbei knocks it back to him, or Frankie fires a laser to destroy the boulder, or Zoro outright cuts the boulder in half. Usopp has pop greens capable of catching the boulders, Luffy can destroy the boulder, or Sanji blitzes in and attacks Burgess before he even gets to throw the boulder. And I'm going to apologize in advance, because Sanji's speed blitzing characters is going to be a reoccurring theme for this video. Burgess on his own is not that impressive, considering his very poor showing against Sabo and Dressrosa. The Straw Hats have so many ways that I didn't even mention, that just make Burgess and his Devil Fruit completely useless in this fight. Doc Q has the Sick Fruit, but all we have really seen it do is change characters' genders, and we already know that Strong Enough Haki is able to negate this ability. I'm sure that is not all the fruit is capable of doing, but that is all we have seen so far. Usopp can snipe Doc Q, Robin can subdue him with her ability, Luffy can fly with Gear 4, not to mention Sanji could easily speed blitz Doc Q and one-shot him before he even knows what's happening. The only other offense we have seen from Doc Q is from his scythe and his exploding apples. But none of this really matters because even if he tried to throw some apples or swing a scythe at somebody, Robin can easily subdue him, and then anyone can beat him from there. Van Augur has the Warp Fruit, which as the name suggests allows him to warp to different places. Now this Devil Fruit is actually pretty nice. Van Augur already has insane accuracy. Remember during the pre-time skip, he was able to shoot down several seagulls flying above the Going Merry before the Straw Hats were even able to see the island of Jaya. So he would be able to warp around the island, taking pot shots at the Straw Hats, or at least he would be able to. But say it with me now. Sanji is going to speed blitz Van Augur and probably one-shot him, either before he gets to warp or shortly after he completes his warp. I'm going to give Van Augur the benefit of the doubt and say that his observation haki is better than Queen's, considering that he is a sniper, so he may be able to dodge Sanji at some points. Even if Van Augur gets to take a few shots at the Straw Hats, John Bart was able to tank his bullets without any haki, so the Straw Hats would be in a better position, considering that the Monster Trio and Jinbei all have armament haki, so they would be able to block the bullets coming towards them or other Straw Hats. And like I mentioned in my video about the Straw Hats fighting the Blackbeard Pirates after Annie's lobby, Robin would be able to restrict Van Augur with her Devil Fruit, making Van Augur a non-factor for this fight. Usopp could counter-snipe Van Augur, Luffy has Gear 4th, and Frankie is literally bulletproof, and most of the other Straw Hats have range attacks, so in general Van Augur is not going to have a good time in this scenario. Then we get to the big one, the main man himself, Blackbeard. So to fully explain how screwed Blackbeard is, let's first go over how I see the fight playing out. Sanji speed blitzes Doc Q, Robin restricts Van Augur before he gets to do anything, and Frankie can easily handle Burgess by himself. Now the weaker Strawhats are not much of a factor here, meaning everyone not Jinbei or the Monster Trio would be busy mobbing up the other Blackbeard pirates, meaning Usopp, Nami, Robin, Frankie, Brook, and Chopper would be fighting Van Augur, Doc Q, and Burgess. And yes, those fights would be very short, leaving the heavy hitters such as Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei to fight Blackbeard. You could argue that Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji is already overkill, and that they don't need Jinbei for this, and I would agree with you, but the other members of Blackbeard's crew are really beneath someone like Jinbei. And as I mentioned earlier, the other Straw Hats have them covered already. So how does this fight play out? Blackbeard has the Darkness Fruit, so he could turn off Luffy's Devil Fruit, but he has to make physical contact to do that. And at this point in the story, Luffy has so many ways to counter that. During their skirmish at Impel Down, Blackbeard was able to react to Gear 2 Luffy and pull him in with his darkness. The problem is now Luffy is several times faster than he was 2 years ago. Gear 4 makes Luffy much faster and enables him the ability to fly, meaning that when Blackbeard is pulling Luffy in with his darkness, Luffy can stall by attacking Blackbeard at a distance whilst flying away with his Devil Fruit. And even if Blackbeard is able to successfully pull Luffy towards him, he is not going to like what he gets. Luffy can attack Blackbeard at a distance with Advanced Armament Haki, or even worse, Advanced Conqueror's Haki. We have already seen what Advanced Conqueror's Haki was able to do to Kaido, arguably the most durable character in the series, and Blackbeard himself already stated that the Darkness Fruit amplifies the damage he takes, so he is going to take even more damage from an Advanced Conqueror's Haki attack, and that's just Luffy. The Darkness Fruit would not work against Zoro, Sanji, or Jinbei, since none of them have Devil Fruits. Zoro also has Advanced Conqueror's Haki and was able to scar Kaido, not to mention that before that he was already able to cut mountains. The Darkness Fruit would negate some of the damage from Zoro's attacks, but Zoro is still one of the hardest hitting characters in the series. Sanji was able to destroy Queen with Ifrit Janbei during their fight, and Queen had Ancient Zoan durability on his side, and that still didn't matter. Jinbei was able to send Big Meme flying with one of his attacks, and then we get to Fishman Karate as a whole. As Jinbei explains, Fishman Karate can manipulate the water in a person's body, meaning that to some extent it can even do internal damage, which negates Blackbeard's physical defense. Since they would be near the water, Jinbei would also be able to use some of his attacks that he only has access to in the water, and as a fishman, Jinbei is naturally stronger within the water. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Blackbeard also has the Quake Fruit, so he could use that against them. Yes, he could. The problem is that even if he hits them, he isn't going to one-shot any of them. Luffy took multiple regular and Advanced Conqueror's Haki attacks from Kaido and was still able to keep fighting. Zoro survived the strongest attack in the series and can still fight afterwards. Sanji has his Germa durability, and Jinbei was able to block in a direct attack from Big Meme and Akainu. They each showcased impressive durability and endurance, leading me to believe that they would be able to take at least a few Earthquake attacks from Blackbeard. Not to mention how hard it would be for Blackbeard to fight in a 4 vs 1. Forget Gear 5. Snake Man with Advanced Conqueror's Haki would give Luffy the speed, range, and power to bully Blackbeard. Sanji would be too fast for Blackbeard and would send Blackbeard flying multiple times, and then we get to King of Hell Zoro. Considering one of his attacks was able to scar Kaido, and another attack was so powerful that a Yonko told another Yonko to dodge that attack, Zoro is definitely going to deal serious damage to Blackbeard. Not to mention Zoro also gets a buff from fighting a black character, making him even stronger, and Jinbei is going to deal serious damage with Fishman Karate. Sure, Blackbeard has 2 Devil Fruits, but in this scenario, he may never even get a chance to use them, before he is completely obliterated by Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei. Alright, so I explained how one-sided this fight is at great length, but I did mention that there is one way the Blackbeard pirates may pull off the win. If you really think about it, the answer is right in your face. Van Augur. More specifically, the Warp Fruit. Now you might be scratching your head at this, but hear me out. We know that this island is within Blackbeard's territory, so it is relatively close to Hachinoso Island, and Van Augur has the ability to warp. You see where I'm going with this? In theory, Van Augur could warp to Hachinoso Island and warp back with the rest of the Blackbeard pirates, similar to the Flying Thunder God from Naruto, or the Instant Transmission from DBZ. The Warp Fruit could enable Van Augur to ferry multiple people to other locations almost instantly, and with the entire Blackbeard crew, and more importantly Kuzan as their reinforcements, now we have a fight. Now for this to work, Van Augur would have to avoid being speed blitzed by Sanji, or subdued by Robin, which is already hard enough. But let's entertain this scenario. With Blackbeard's entire crew present, the Strawhats are at a numbers disadvantage. The Strawhats would have to 1 vs 1 Blackbeard pirates, and that's where everything starts to go downhill. With everything Luffy currently has in his arsenal, him fighting Blackbeard in a 1 vs 1 and winning is not that crazy. And at this point in the story, with him beating Kaido, defeating Blackbeard seems like a much easier matchup for him in comparison. The main problem is Kuzan. The only person in the Straw Hat crew who could comfortably fight Kuzan is Luffy, and he would be busy fighting Blackbeard. And even then, Luffy beating Kuzan is not guaranteed, considering Luffy tied against Kizaru at Egghead. and Kizaru did not even use Devil Fruit Awakening against a Gear 5 Luffy. I know people want to bring up Luffy one-shotting Kizaru, but Luffy himself was rendered unable to continue fighting afterwards, resulting in a stalemate. Not to mention that Kuzan should be relatively close to Akainu's strength, considering that he fought him for 10 days straight. Then we look at Zoro and Sanji, and neither one of them is beating an admiral at this point in the story. As strong as they are now, they are still not on the level of the admirals. You could argue that Zoro and Sanji could team up to fight Kuzan, but the entire crew is already at a numbers disadvantage. You might think Sanji is the best choice against Kuzan, considering the speed and fire properties of Ifrit Jambe, but this likely wouldn't even matter, considering we have already seen Admiral Fraudable have a direct counter to his elemental weakness. It is safe to assume that Kuzan has something similar. This makes sense considering he fought Akainu for 10 days straight, despite him being at an elemental disadvantage. Maybe we could swap some of the matchups, and have Luffy fight Kuzan, and Zoro fight Blackbeard. Considering how well Law did against Blackbeard, you could argue that Zoro would do even better, since he doesn't have a Devil Fruit and he has advanced Conqueror's Haki. But Law did ultimately lose that fight, and I don't see Blackbeard, a fully fledged Emperor, losing to a right-hand man. Zoro does have the speed advantage in this scenario, but Blackbeard's Darkness Fruit does affect the terrain, which would impact Zoro's speed. Blackbeard also has the range advantage with the Quake Fruit. Yes, Zoro does hit like 10 trucks, but even with his strongest attack, he couldn't defeat Kaido. Sanji would do a better job stalling Blackbeard considering his speed and ability to fly, but if Zoro lacks the power to put down Blackbeard, so does Sanji. I also want people to keep in mind just how much of an impact Kuzan would make for the Blackbeard pirates. He could instantly freeze the ocean, preventing the Strawhats from escaping, and stopping Jinbei from using his strongest water-based attacks. He could also change the entire climate of the island, similar to what happened to Punk Hazard. We saw during the pre-time skip that he can end the fight in an instant, with the way that he defeated Jozu. Yes, Jozu was distracted, which led to his downfall, but that leads me to my next point. These are the Blackbeard pirates. We saw how they fought at Hachinoso Island, and they are not afraid to use underhanded tactics to get the win. Imagine Shiryu uses his invisibility fruit and targets a weaker Straw Hat like Nami. Someone else would have to step in to protect her, which could lead to them taking damage, or worse. Katarina's Devil Fruit is perfect for deception. Imagine she impersonates one of the Straw Hats as a way of deceiving them. I could easily see someone like Chopper falling for this. She could trick a Straw Hat into running towards an enemy, leading to that Straw Hat taking damage, or worse. Or imagine Luffy is able to hypnotize one or more of the Straw Hats, leading towards the Straw Hats fighting themselves, or leaving themselves open for worse. Something like Kuzan makes this matchup a nightmare for the Straw Hats at this point in the story. Now I know some smart guy out there is thinking, why doesn't Luffy just use Bajrang Gun and destroy the island with the Blackbeard pirates on it? Well, for a few reasons. Blackbeard could negate the Bajrang Gun with his Darkness Fruit, or Vanogar could warp the Blackbeard pirates elsewhere to avoid the attack entirely. And if you think Advanced Conqueror's Haki would stop Blackbeard, Vanogar could literally warp Blackbeard directly to Luffy to nullify the attack. You see, there are so many ways that this fight could go wrong. Without Kuzan, the Straw Hats could very well take this fight, but with him in the mix, and with the Straw Hats being at a numbers disadvantage, there really is no hope of victory. What started out as the Straw Hats casually stomping the Blackbeard pirates could easily turn into the Straw Hats fighting for their lives, with a small chance of survival. This is just what I think. You can let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think the Blackbeard pirates could win with less than half of their crew, or do they need their entire crew to secure the victory? Could the Straw Hats pull off the win even with Kuzan present, or is that too much? And if you liked this video, you can watch my last video about Luffy and the Straw Hats teaming up with Ace to fight the Blackbeard pirates right after Enies lobby. And again, I will tackle what if Kid went to Egghead or fought Blackbeard, and what if Law went to Egghead or fought Shanks in future videos. So stay tuned. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, or a dislike if you didn't, and consider subscribing for more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching.